While you're saying that, pledge allegiance to the flag,
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
The school district's mission statement, proudly by our history as one of the oldest publicly supported schools in Wisconsin, Mineral Point School District is the heart of a small community that educates and inspires our students for a bright future in a big world. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order and take attendance.
Bergstrom, Bush,
Here.
Dunn,
Here.
Harris,
Here.
Easter,
Here.
Thompson, Gelding.
Here. We have a quorum, so we'll continue. We'll start with recognitions. Wainwright.
Once again, we just wanted to thank Bob Janetka for his time as a board member. Angie was in contact with Bob recently and invited him to attend tonight's meeting online, but he just didn't seem to remember the link. But again, just want to recognize Bob for his time and insights helping us as a school district continue to move forward. So
He
Thank
did
you.
have the link. He just was at another meeting, he had another commitment.
So a thank you to Bob. Next up will be our wrestlers. We have several of them here. If you'd like to at least stand and come closer to the school board. A great weekend for individual wrestlers. Kate Rule and Delia Collins finished third place. Rowan Carey came in second, and then Taryn Riley first place, Lucas Sullivan first place, and our two-time state champion Kylie Rule here. Guys, anybody want to say anything about wrestling season? How it went for you? What you're looking forward to next?
We had a really good season as a team. It was kind of deceiving to see we didn't really fall in a place where we should have, but individually, as you can see up there, results really show that we have a really strong base to a good team here. And some of these guys are going to do some great things next year. And we can do the same in college. And I think Feather's doing a really good job with the program.
And this is probably one of the better years in probably the last 3 or 4, wouldn't you say, guys, that it's probably the most successful individual state championship team, or individuals in program here in the last few years. A pretty storied tradition. I know personally, I will say we are number 1 in the state when it comes to individual wrestling champs. Unfortunately, the WI doesn't recognize us. We're tied for first place. They don't recognize Kylie's 2 state champions in individual because they recognize girls wrestling now as a separate sport. So we are tied with Stoughton for the most individual state champs in history, in wrestling history. So congratulations, guys. Thank you. Gymnastics, I don't know, is Allie? I'm working on them to change the graphic there, that DMPIG, that DMPIG just kind of jumps out at me a little bit. But it's Stodville, Mineral Point, and Iowa Grant school districts combined for a tryout in gymnastics, and our own Allie Baylor competed at the state in the balance beam. And Allie finished 22nd in the individual competition. So congratulations to Allie on a great year and ending it at least at the state tournament level. So congratulations, Allie. Then I will bring our next individual up, Mr. Griffin Alba. Griffin was our senior Senate scholar, just recently. So Griffin, why don't you tell us a little bit about the experience?
Yeah, so really it's just once in a lifetime experience. We had to go there. We stayed at the Madison Concourse Hotel for 5 nights. We met a variety of people that work at the Capitol, state assemblymen, senators. We had a chance to meet the governor and the first lady and have lunch with them at their house. That was really amazing. And then we also just met with a bunch of other people that work at the Capitol. Kind of learned what route they took to get there, what they thought about their job, anything they would change to do in our shoes. We also went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, to their public affairs building. We kind of learned about their program there that they offered and how different Capitol members do part-time programs there and things like that, and just how we wanted to get to the Capitol, what steps we would take to do that as well. I guess I'd just say one more thing. I'd recommend that we try to at least get one kid to apply every year to the program, just because I said once in a lifetime opportunity, we have nothing to lose. So.
And has there ever been, and I'm going to plead ignorant, has there ever been someone from Mineral Point before?
Yeah, that's actually the reason why how I found out about it and did it. Karsten Bakken did 4 years ago, I believe.
That sounds right.
Yeah. And he actually told me about the program at State FBLA, and I kind of loved everything he was saying, so I decided to apply.
Is it pretty competitive application process, or
Yeah, so
most kids can go if they want?
it's really a competitive application process. So as many of you probably know, there's 33 Wisconsin state senators, and each one gets to choose one student from their Senate district.
So he's competing against all the other seniors that are interested. You apply to Senator Markland, correct?
Correct.
So that's not just a, hey, I'm interested and
Right.
come on down. There's a little something behind that being selected for something like that. So very impressive. And probably your future governor sitting right here before us. So thank you, Griffin, and congratulations.
Okay, next is approval of the minutes. We've had quite a few meetings. We had the February regular meeting. We had a policy committee meeting on February 15th. We had a finance committee meeting on March 1st. We had a special meeting on March 2nd to extend the retirement package incentive deadline. We had a board retreat or board development on the same night, where we mainly talked about our second priority goal in making Mineral Point a safe place for all students and give every student a sense of belonging in the district.
And staff.
And staff, thank you. And then we held the candidate forum on the 6th. So I'll take a motion to approve the minutes of these meetings together or individually.
Should we approve together?
Second. Bush Harris. Any comments or amendments to the minutes?
Bush,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Belding,
Yes.
Bergstrom,
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes. Okay, next we'll go to communications. First, board communications received. Start with Joni.
Even though we've met several times over the last month, I don't have any direct communication either by email or in person pertaining to any of the school board topics. Nothing.
I think the only one I got was around before and after school care options, which I know we're going to talk about later on. So I don't think I got any other besides that.
Mr. Harris.
Yeah, I'm just looking.
Yeah.
I don't believe so.
I got an email from a past staff retiree, wondering if they could take advantage of this retirement package that we're offering. And then I had a letter of support from a community member supporting that past retiree's request. Go ahead.
The only thing I had was the email that we got about
What was that?
that. The same email about the after school.
And a couple of people that reached out to watch the forum and wanted to thank the board, and should probably also thank Alan for recommending it as well on the policy committee for bringing that format back. They thought it was well done that the students were to just have all the answers in a row to the same question instead of watching 3 separate videos. They enjoyed, and then both of them actually mentioned the board's awareness of the SEL situation and making that a priority. So they were both happy to hear that that was now on our radar. So.
Yeah, I just want to thank Mrs. Staver and Matthew and for participating in that. Thought you guys did a great job. You came well dressed and looked smart and represented the students well. So nice job. Okay. Next is citizen communications. Just a reminder, state your name and place of residence, and you have 3 minutes. Sign-up sheet, I have Alan Schrank.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I just wanted to echo off of what you guys had said about the forum. I had put in a request that it be held in person, and I was extremely thankful that that request was granted. I want to thank Joni and Andy for being here, and it was a really good discussion. I thought it was very positive, and it was nice to actually be back in person and allow the community members and stuff to come in. Regarding the upcoming school board election, I met with Dr. Dunn at lunch and expressed how lucky Mineral Point is to have 3 highly qualified candidates, because it's not like that everywhere in the state of Wisconsin, where there might not be people even interested in running for school board. And Mineral Point is very fortunate to be able to have a quality of candidates that want to serve the board for the right reasons. I continue to meet with administration and, the operations committee. We had a really good discussion down at the elementary school parking lot regarding the parking lot and the safety and stuff down there, and my expertise in traffic safety and ingress and egress down there. And I wanted to come tonight to kind of bridge off of what we had talked about in the parking lot when I came to the operations committee last week, and then hopefully being involved in the conversations tonight. Make sure that it's safe for not only the students, the little ones that are running around, but the staff and also the community. And I think the conversation moving forward is very positive down there. And I have full faith in the administration and the district that we're going to come up with a solution that is safe for everybody. And then just kind of going off the forum and the election coming up, unfortunately, there's only going to be 2 of the 3 people elected, but all 3 people have great qualifications and want to serve the district. So appreciate your guys' time, and any way I can be of help in the next month before the election or in the future, I'll continue to come and be a part of the conversation. And I have a meeting set up with Mitch on Wednesday morning to talk about some things for the district moving forward. And I just hope that during the upcoming election, the community takes everything I've done into consideration. But regardless, there's 3 outstanding candidates. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Anyone else in the room want to talk? Period? No? Anyone online can use the raise your hand icon. Just a couple online there. Okay. Thank you. Okay, next is items for information discussion. First is a comparison. Right.
So in your board packet, you have the February of 22 budget numbers. And at this point in time, a year ago, we had expended 52.85% of the district's budget. And this year, February of 23, we're at 53.7. So again, every month we seem to be within 1 to 1.5% of the budget expenditures. Everything is on track. I feel very confident that it will be a balanced budget, the end of June. And by the time we hit the audit season, we'll get a preliminary audit in June, and then they'll come in July. So basically, district expenses will be done in June. So I'm feeling very good where we are in the calendar and where our budget sits. So I think we're in good shape fiscally right now.
Great. Any questions? Comments about that? Okay. Next, we'll have building administrator updates.
Well, because she wanted to go first, we'll give it to her. Miss Dahl from the middle school.
Sorry, our color printer down in the middle school. Not the greatest, so. On February 28th, we took 48 of our students to Pioneering Your Future in STEM at UW-Platteville. They started their day dissecting an owl pellet. Lots of oohs and ahs and ick and all that stuff. And then went on to participate in 3 different sessions. We were all divided up into groups by colors. And so they had an opportunity to attend 3 sessions. I was with the green group, civil and environmental engineering. We did some work with some soil, and then industrial engineering. That was by far my favorite. We threw a softball, and they timed us, and you could move back. So a lot of the girls enjoyed that. And then they had them go back, and they were able to use an engraver and engrave like a softball medallion. So they enjoyed that. A lot of good comments from the kids, on the way back. March 3rd, 85 of our middle school students went tubing at Tyrol Basin. And many of them told me they had a blast, and they said Miss Dahl, it was one of the best trips that they have ever experienced. So I know they're just in middle school, so hopefully high school they'll be able to experience some more trips. We also have 3 new activity clubs that have started at the middle school, thanks to Mrs. Rod. And we have the Kindness Club, the Chess Club, and the Game Club. And it just tells you as far as the clubs, when they meet. And we've had some, I believe, some high school students have played some chess too with our kids.
Not an interest. I don't know how to play chess, so they probably could help me out.
Yeah. Well, but these have been pretty popular, and the Kindness Club, the students, they're, let's say they're caught doing or showing kindness, then you can fill out a form, and then they're recognized on our Pointer Media.
Game club is like board games.
Board games, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Was this the first year you've done this Pioneering Your Future trip?
No, I think this has been my 4th or 5th time attending, and they've gone previously into that. And they've actually added some agriculture activities this year. Before it was just like engineering, biology. So yeah, I guess you could call it STEAM.
Was it's an optional thing for the kids to sign up for?
Yes, yes. Yeah, and we've always had like 40 plus. And usually, I mean, it's really, they call it girls, they used to call it girls in STEM, but now it's pioneering your future in STEM, but we just had the emails go along.
Oh, it was
Yeah,
just
it's
girls.
really- yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because they want to spark interest in those fields
Got it.
for emails.
There was a little hiatus with all the stuff going on.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they've
Yeah.
done this and then there was a pause. So
Yeah.
is this the first year or second year it's coming?
Second year back, but this year, the format like really changed because of like extra, I don't know, they have extra security in place as far as registering and making sure you have so many chaperones. And the buildings that I was in, it was very interesting because I graduated from UW Platteville and I cannot believe how that campus has expanded. Not just the athletic facilities, but their buildings, like their civil engineering and then the industrial engineering.
Moving trip sounded fun.
There was a few bruises, but
Yeah, major injuries. Was that a spontaneous thing, or do you do
Well-
that every year, or?
we used to go skiing.
Okay.
And so then student council members, because when we went skiing, if you've never skied before, you always had to take a lesson. And they were on the bunny hill, they take a lesson, and then some of them had a tendency to think they were pretty good after one lesson. And so this year they talked about tubing, and the student council is the one that set this up.
And these are just the different
Yeah.
subjects for
Mhm.
the pioneering the
Yeah.
future. Great.
And the groups.
Right.
And then it was myself, Mrs. Grutz, Mrs. Brown, and Mrs. McCoy, who were the chaperone.
Did students get to choose their groups or are they randomly assigned?
They were randomly assigned, but we talked about next year, we're gonna let the kids sign up for what they want to go to, because I should have never opened my mouth about softball, because some of them were a little upset they didn't get to go to that one. And I said, well, we can't have 48 girls in one session, so. The owl pellet dissecting was very interesting. Yeah, so seriously, what they eat and the bones and
Thank you for those eating watching tonight.
yeah, I mean, it was enjoyed one that I'm glad we were able to do that.
That's a nice thing to provide over there.
Yeah. And then
Did that cost a fee per student, or?
yes, it costs a fee, and then we went, that was February 28th, and then March 3rd, a high school group went down. Yeah. Thank you.
Pretty good. I've got noticed in the crowd, quite a few students here for quite a busy month at the high school and middle school. I'm actually going to invite the person I want to talk about. On March 1st, we had a sources of strength training for our select number of students and adults. That's where a lot of these kids are here. I was going to kind of let them kind of explain what that day was like. Really neat day in my mind. We got a lot out of that. And then some of the follow-up conversations, which will lead up to our Health and Wellness Day, which is on March 27th. So why don't you guys kind of go and say something about that?
Okay. So as you can see, this is only a very small portion of the group that were there on March 1st. We have seniors and sophomores and middle schoolers even that attended this event. And this event was primarily meant to provide peer leader training. So we are all known as the ambassadors of Sources of Strength, meaning that we are the people in the student body who want to spread this message further to our classmates. Sources of Strength it's broken down into several parts. There are 8 pieces on the wheel. They range from healthy activities to family support to spirituality and generosity, things like that, that we can use to eventually better our mental and physical health and to overall do better as a.
Yeah, I think in addition to just making it a combination of high school and middle school students, kind of even close the gap even further between the middle school and the high school.
I feel like it provided a good overall framework. I know that when we talked about doing a social emotional learning day last year, we didn't get to it, but now I feel like it provides a really good framework for how we're going to set it up this year as a student council and as a leadership. I also feel like overall it's a really good idea to have as a program, as obviously something like peer pressure can have a lot of effects in negative ways, but it can also have a lot of effects in positive ways if you have people that are trained. There can be a lot of positive things from that with students working with their peers. Really simplify it and make it combined. So I thought it was well worth our time.
Also given us a lot of opportunities to extend these ideas into the more general public. For example, our drama club is putting on Hamlet this year. And many of you may know that there are some suicidal themes and generally more negative themes that appear in that show. And through this, we were able to formulate an idea as to inform the crowd in a more graceful way before the show begins. And then during our intermission, we actually want to take some time to sit and talk to the people in the audience about the sources of strength. And without this peer leader training, I don't know that that's something that we would have been able to do.
I also like from the teachers how they brought a diverse group of students in so that when we go back to our groups and stuff, we can show our sources of strength, whether that's through the basketball team, through theater, or etc.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun and I learned a lot.
Okay. Any questions for me? Was it from my, and I had to pop in and out. I was in meetings that day, but when I popped in and out, I heard a lot of great things, a lot of great conversations, saw a lot of great things. I was able to participate in a follow-up meeting, which kind of was helping us determine some of the activities for the Health and Wellness Day. So I thought that was really powerful. The trainer that day, and I'm going to forget, was phenomenal. And I only talked to her probably for 10 minutes. She had to be just phenomenal. Really cool day. So thank you for allowing us to go virtual that day too, because that kind of helped, obviously, give us a space to do that in.
And how many kids have been trained in this?
So there was about 80 people in that training that day. I think it was about 65-ish. Because I know that the circle had about 85 chairs. We did have some people from a couple other districts come and participate just to see what it's about. I do know this is starting to catch on at different. Yeah, it was really cool. So students were nominated from their different groups by staff members and stuff. And then they could accept it or not accept that, but I think there's probably about 65 students.
I know when I looked at the representation, it's a really diverse representation. Meaning I wasn't able to be there, that several of the students were there being trained and were very vulnerable and shared their story, and so it was a really broad.
I see this as like a top priority in your age group, like just the topic.
Absolutely. If this had been something available in the district when I was a middle schooler, I know that it would have made such a difference in my life. And I can't speak for the other people around me, but for me, it would have made a significant difference.
Do you think that all students could benefit from going through this program? Or is it best to have just a subset of the students or to make it optional for everybody? Or what do you think?
I don't know that everyone would be as responsive to the training day as perhaps some of us were. A lot of those conversations were maybe a little bit difficult ones to have. And I know that some people might not be as open to that, but I think that doing the peer training and then having a separate day for everyone to partake in the sources of strength, although maybe not to the same degree, is better.
And I feel like even I notice a lot that young people tend to learn really well from other people their age. So if we have a lot of people with us that are well versed, then we can go out and spread those ideas to other people that we're in school with, and that might not have necessarily as responsive at that training. You already have really good connections with them, so having those conversations with that training, I think, conversation, a good way to go about it.
We have staff and administration that are doing this in the training.
There's staff, yes.
Staff, yeah.
I had meetings that day,
Yeah.
and so did Ms. Dawn. People had meetings that day.
Yeah. We were invited and it's a little like last minute. And so I know for me, I just had something I couldn't get out of at work, but I was thinking in our conversation that our strategic planning thing, we're going to be putting a big focus on SEL at the board, that maybe all the board members could commit to doing this training in the next 3 years or something and participating. I don't know if you find that helpful directly, but I think it's helpful for us to like experience that ourselves and then to make sure that we're bringing that sort of mindset to our work to support these.
Anyone have anything else? Always a good job.
Next step is we're planning like a mental health day. For the
Self-awareness
student
Day is
body.
March 22nd.
That's the same thing.
That's it. Yep. That's what they met and they planned some different activities. We had some outline stuff and then they kind of planned and talked about it. A week and a half away. That's middle school, high school. I'll be all day on that one. Looking forward to it. Sounds awesome. Some of the ideas that you come up with this sound. So, yeah. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And they said we have busy months. One of the things that happened in February, and I believe it was February 21st, Mr. Wynn, so he's a state assistant superintendent. February was CTE month for Tech Ed month. We were fortunate to be picked as one of the schools for either the deputy assistant or the assistant superintendents or the superintendent kind of visited. We were one of the school districts, so they came down to look at our CTE program. Matthew and Mackenzie were part of that trip because Matthew was serving for the FBLA that day. Mackenzie was serving for Skills USA. But they were just going to kind of give you a brief overview of that day. So they were here for about 2 hours. It was supposed to be 2 hours. It ended up being like 2 hours and 45 minutes, which was great. Great conversations. They all kind of let them talk about that.
Well, we first started off and went to the egg room and visited Mr. Robinson's greenhouse in their class. They talked to each other and it was a great time, and they kind of learned like what we do here, and then when we went to Mr. Carey's room.
From the greenhouse to the welding shop.
Yep.
And then Mr.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
the welding shop. And then went to Mr. Carey's room and we learned about like the woodworking, and then they also got to see like the kids making like t-shirts and like mugs and like hats and stuff, because I know that's very popular now, like hats that they're making. And then we went to the gym and we showed them like the media board and everything that that we do like at a game and stuff. So they thought that was very cool, and they're like, it's a very good idea that Mr. Austin made with the TVs, very inexpensive rather than the DAX Electronics board. And then we went to the media room downstairs, showed them the green screen and everything that we use downstairs in the morning on the news. And then we actually went to Ms. Dawkins' room and talked about FBLA and then youth apprenticeship down there.
I feel like it was a really interesting experience to talk to the people from the DPI and show them what we do, because not only do we have FBLA, FFA, and skills and schools, but we really excel at all of those. You see every FFA competition, FBLA, skills. We send a lot of people to state, and they're some of the most valuable ways, I think, and from my experience, to learn skills that you might not learn in the classroom. And with our media program, schools in the state that has a program like that, and there's a lot of experiences that you get there, not just with skills of learning graphic design tools or broadcasting, whatever that might be, but problem solving, even with all four of those organizations. So it's really interesting to talk to the people from the DPI and show them what we do here, and that was a good day overall.
Mr. Wainwright, you want to add in?
Their whole premise, I mean, once the initial introductions and some of the small talk was out of the way, they really wanted to see the kids in action. They wanted to talk to the kids in action. So these guys took over, we just had them lead to their area. We had Joey Robinson, who was the president of the FFA, took them out to the greenhouse, and then there was class going on. So they were able to interact with kids and, what are you doing? What's going on? We went into the welding shop. We had Brody Lee. They made something for UE. It was a donation on behalf of the school district. There's some touchiness, I guess, in giving a gift or something, but but we were able to talk. Brody Lee, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm planning to do next, is to go to Southwest Texas. And they were able to have that kind of a conversation. What are you doing? I'm going to Southwest Tech getting a welding degree. And when we moved into the gym, we could then turn around and say, and not only is he going to Southwest Tech, but he helped weld the things that supporting our TV. So part of our display board was created by one of our own students in the district. And Carol Hutchinson, who's kind of like the head of the kind of the CTE department for the DPI, was very much how long is it going to take? How long is it going to take? We're going to be here for 10 minutes. How long was a walk? I mean, if I allow 10 minutes, is that a long enough walk? And I'm like, 10 minutes, and then you'll have 9.5 minutes extra left over in the classroom. Because we're not a very big school. We'll be able to get from one place to the next. Well, Carol was the one who was the time master. And when they got downstairs in the media room, she was the one that asked probably 90% of the questions. She was the one that basically made them go over their 2-hour visit by 45 minutes. But I mean, they were impressed, truly impressed by what the kids have, by the opportunities our kids have, by what our kids are doing. I did receive a letter of appreciation, so I will scan that in and share with all the board members from UE. And I mean, it's just, he's the assistant superintendent of academic excellence, and was just very proud to see what we've got going on. Talked about a lot of things that, fit in kind of a gifted and talented program. And his first comment to me, he goes, this is what it should be like in every school. This is what every school's gifted and talented should be. Not just reading more books or writing more papers, but these are things that kids can demonstrate. And then here's my portfolio that I take with me. And we were hoping to be able to interview him down in the media room and ask a couple questions, but because Ms. Hutchinson took a little extra long, he said he would certainly come back sometime and allow us to interview him a little bit, just to be part of our program again. But again, it was all the students basically leading the conversations and the tour and things like that. So
Touch on what Mr. Wainwright said, I think Kenzie can say the same thing. We're really thankful to have club advisors and Mr. Austin and Mr. Wainwright support us in these programs and help them grow to the size they are and give us the opportunity on the valuable stuff that we learn. Really great, a lot of fun too. So
Awesome. Any other questions on the wiki for now? Lindsay's gonna. And again, I mean, I know we got done, we talked about just an incredible day. You really got to see kids do what they were masters of. But really cool. And I invite any of you anytime to come in and see that stuff. It's pretty awesome to watch kids do those things. Couple other things here. So we had in February, we had future freshman night. And 2 more members that were there with their students. It was a really cool night. First time we've had it in 4 years. I think they had done it previously a while back, but Ms. Brunson and I wanted to make sure that we were giving out the same message and that parents are hearing those things. Pretty fortunate to have teachers there that night. We had a nice crowd that night. We also had a couple of students. Mackenzie was one of them. I don't know if she wants to say anything about that night, but it was really neat to get that information out there and just kind of be around to help people and answer questions. I thank Mackenzie and Olivia Woodhausen for coming that night. Jane Schultz was there tonight that night to talk about media one and stuff. But I really thank them because I think that perspective from them is so much more powerful than it is from Ms. Brunson, myself, or a teacher at that time. Hey, you really should look into this. Hey, you really should join a club or two. This is a really cool thing. So, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, it's something that I wish I would have had when I was a freshman, especially coming here. I came here in 8th grade. So I didn't really know everything that they offered, but definitely wish I would have had that as a freshman because it's like the one-on-one, like the 8th graders not going to listen to Miss Brunson or Miss Day. They're going to listen to us. Like a kid, like kind of their age, but they're going to listen to them. Like get in clubs, like be one of the tops, like something that it's easy to offer one night and just have people there and just tell the kids to get involved because that's very important.
That's something we'll be doing in the future. We're going to last year. Time got away from us a little bit and we were changing a lot of the Skyward codes over to match us. So that took a lot longer than Ms. Brunson and I both thought it was going to. So that's one of the reasons why we didn't have it last year. That was really cool to have this year. So, thank you.
Thanks, Mackenzie.
Sorry, I have a whole onslaught. I told you it's a very easy one. So Lucas, along with, let's say there's 9 other kids, I believe. I think there's 10 kids. So this year, just a quick thing, and he won't be too long here either, and this won't take too long. Construction class this year, we've actually changed to a block. So it's the first time, as far as I know, that we've had a block class. But it was a really neat thing that we wanted to try. And I would say overall, it's been really, really good because it's not we're going to work on this for 20 minutes and then we got to clean up. It's been it's in the morning. So there are mornings where they will go from 8 o'clock to basically the end of the 3rd hour, which is about 10 o'clock. And they'll get a full 2 hours of work. Otherwise they'll go right after advisory for the first 2 hours of periods of the day and then come back. So I'll let Lucas kind of talk about that. Some of the work they're doing down at Mr. Carey's house in his basement. He's donating the materials, obviously, and paying for that stuff, but they're learning how to do some of those things. What you kind of done so far.
Basically we started, it's everything in the trades possible that you can think of. We started with framing everything in the basement to sheetrocking. Now we're on mudding and taping. So right now it's kind of a mess, but everybody's learning. We break up into groups of 2s and go get your mud pans and knives, and everybody's doing really good. And Carrie's walking around making sure everybody's learning what they need to do. And then we're going to be doing some painting, and we got some flooring to do, and we're going to be hanging some puck lightings up. I'm really thankful that me and my classmates have this opportunity as seniors, so it really opens up our eyes to what we can do.
For the lighting piece, does Mr. Carey facilitate that, or do you bring in like an electrician to kind of oversee that work?
Carrie's doing some of it, and then Lynch.
So Brendan is one of our youth apprenticeships today, electrical, working with an electrician.
Mm-hmm.
So he's been doing a lot of that. Mr. Carey will check it because he does know how to teach that and do that, obviously with the contractor backgrounds. But I know Brendan did the lights, the can lights and the off it and stuff. But it gives him another opportunity to work on that. A couple of other things that Mr. Carey was actually down at the elementary a little bit today, talking with Mr. Engwell, sent me a picture of it. So they believe in the next couple of weeks, and I don't know if Lucas knows this, but they're going to be going down to the elementary to do a little project. And there's that area there. It's kind of like cut in. I believe what they talked about is doing some sort of a wall there with a rock wall, so they can not obviously very high, but just across the side of it. But they're going to be working on that in the next couple of weeks. And Kyle actually talked to me after school today. He goes, "That would not be possible if we didn't have this block," because he goes, "I can't. In a half hour, we can't get enough done. In an hour and a half or 2 hours a day, for 4 days during the week, we can get quite a bit done, so pretty neat opportunity for our kids. And then these guys to be able to say, yeah, hey, I built that, right? So that's kind of cool. So, been really neat. So
Super cool. So it's 2 hours every morning, 4 days a week.
it's every day. It's second and third period.
Okay.
They can use advisory if they need to. He stays away from Monday because it's grade checks. So
Okay.
I know like I think it was last week, they went Tuesday and Thursday, they went out there for advisory and the time in the class. So kind of as an enrichment to extend that. So
Okay.
typically it's second and third hour, so it's about an hour and a half. Yeah, Wednesday's a little shorter.
It's a semester long.
It is a semester long. Yep.
Great.
Yeah, pretty cool. And this is the first time we've had it, so this spring semester stuff. Really be able to tell you. I think the kids really like it. I know Mr. Carey really likes it because he can actually dig into something versus, but here's how you butt on this little drywall in the shop because we can't go anywhere and do it. So, I mean, thank you, sir. Other things to touch on, trying to go as fast as I can. At the ACT, that was last week on Tuesday. That was successful. Nice day out for that. Not so nice a couple days later. Or any Thursday, Friday in February, March. Those solo ensemble was this past weekend. Mr. Nevers and Miss Alderon McHugh said that went really well. They were thankful for that opportunity to get back and do that again. Though, they just said it went really, really well. Waiting on final numbers for that. Tomorrow, myself, Mr. Leonard, we take a group of 14 kids up to the Capitol for Youth Apprenticeship Day. CISA 3 actually nominated us for that. So they got to pick whichever school they wanted to. CISA 3 came over, talked to us and said, hey, we really like you to do this. We'll actually have kids that'll get opportunities to talk with the different senators and stuff tomorrow. And they feed them up there and they do some tours and stuff. So really cool day. Looking forward to that. Last week, we had CISA 3 come over. I'm going to turn to Ms. Klein here and highlight they talked about our transition. So I'll let Ms. Klein talk.
They support work employment as well as education side, and they reached out to Mr. Leonard and I, and so they hear about our students and the outcomes that we have for them. They wanted to hear what we're doing, and Leonard and I are in agreement that we're doing what we should be doing, but they said that we offer a lot of activities and opportunities for our students that they're not hearing about in other districts. So they actually spent about an hour and a half with us, and we talked about what we do starting at age 14, all the way through graduation and the different opportunities that we have built in. And then they asked us the next day and asked us to submit basically stories of 3 different students that we talked about at them, because they were just really nice opportunities of transition. So they're going to be showcasing them. I wasn't sure if it's on a podcast or it's being recorded or put in print, but they wanted to be able to share some of the activities that we do that have allowed our students to have great outcomes either at the college level or in the career field after they left us. So it's always nice to hear that people are doing well.
When you say transition, you mean transition to a career or college?
Yeah. So IEPs, when they are 13, turning 14, we add a new part to their IEP plan that is required by the state, and it's called the secondary transition plan. And it focuses on what to do one semester. And then we align courses of study and activities of transition to make sure that they can reach that goal in the end. So just some examples of different things. We partner really closely with the Department of Workforce Development, not only for like job placements, but we we offer our freshmen and sophomores some employability pre-skill activities. So we actually contract with them as a vendor, and they come in and teach some classes to our students on skills to pay the bills or self-advocacy and just giving them another opportunity. Obviously, youth apprenticeship is a great program that we fully support, and that's what our transition grant actually is focused on. Just trying to make sure our students have access to getting their driver's license so they can get transportation options. You know, just trying to make sure that we're hitting all their different activities that they might need exposure to in a systematic way. So I think that's one thing that we've done kind of throughout is we've said, here's what we're committed to beginning in, you know, when they're 13, turning 14, and then largely through mostly high school. And then we always participate in this survey. Is one of the indicators that we do. Indicator 14 is on 1 year following graduation. I follow up with all of our graduates to see what they're doing. Have they been employed or attending school? And we actually are reimbursed and given, you know, money for every successful outcome we have. We don't have to do that, but we choose to because we want to monitor what our outcomes are so that we can adjust our programming.
When do you do that? Right now?
So it opens, it's usually opens, we'll start getting organized for it now. I think it opens June 1st and it closes in September. So I spend some of my time over the summer on my contract days doing some of the survey. Like I usually do them over the summer. It's open until the end of September, but usually we're done before school starts. So.
You mean checking in with the recent graduates?
Yep.
Yeah.
So.
Could you pick a point to share that with the board on an annual basis?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. An outcome? That'd be great.
Last but not least, sorry, no, this is long. It's a busy month. Last board meeting I was asked to put together, and I know this was sent off to you guys as well, the future ready data kind of into graphs so we could kind of look at it a little better. I do apologize about not having that ready for last month here, but I don't know if there's any major questions. I think as you look at it, I know I highlighted this in my email too. You know, attendance is up over the last couple of years, which is really nice to see. So that's really good. Student activity and involvement, I think you see that kind of goes down a little bit there. I think that's something that we need to look at a little bit more, encourage more kids, provide them with those opportunities and expose them to those things. I know, like the first day when they're going through Skills USA meetings and FFA meetings, and when I'm in the cafeteria with those kids, I'm like, yeah, you need to go. Well, I don't want to be part of it. You don't know that. Don't go. Just go check it out, see what it's like. Not saying you have to be part of it, but you should go to the first meeting to see if it may be something you're interested in. So I think that's just something we want to work on to get those numbers back up to where they were. The next one, as I've told you before, the advanced placement courses, dual credit courses, those have grown over the years. We're going to add, I believe, hopefully, we're going to get all the approvals from EW Oshkosh, add CAP physics next year. But just to keep growing those types of things for students to get ahead. You know, some of our students are walking into college with credits that they get to sign up earlier for classes because they have so many credits done, or they don't have to take English here, so they can get into this English faster. And it's really setting our kids up for more success when they get out. The Aspire actually goes away here this spring. It was nice to see. Yes, we had a dip there after COVID, but it was nice to see those go right back up for the most part. 10th reading benchmark down a little bit still, but overall most of them went back to above COVID levels. I think that was really neat to see that. The ACT score, you got to take into account it's only out of 18 out of 22. So while we did dip a little bit last year, I think that'll actually rebound this year. I said I thought we had a lot of good effort last week. I'm excited to see where that can go. And then you have the sub scores, ways that we're addressing those. So for the English one, we added structure of the English language. That's now in year 2 of that. This past year, We've added integrated science, which allows another look at some of those different science topics. We also added the applications of algebra, hopefully kind of get more of the kids at where their level is to help them grow in those areas. Those are just things that we've done over the last couple of years, seeing where these numbers were, to hopefully grow those a little bit higher. I think is why you see the English one keep staying or maintaining up there. That structure.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're talking about this at the elementary school and the middle school, right? That with the reading curriculum we purchased. And then we hope to see results in the middle school and then go up. So
eventually
it's not, I don't want to say it's too late when you get to high school, but it's late enough. Like you want to be working on this stuff, you know, earlier. So hopefully we'll see this.
Looking forward to see what the scores are for the ECT. I get them back a couple weeks. You guys get to see them.
You can kind of give us like a.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You will see more the senior class percentage as we go down. Now, class that we have right now is probably more in, there's a lot of kids that go into the trades and stuff, so they're not going to take pre-cal, but I think that will start to grow back up here too. We do have a rise in senior math classes taken, which is good. We're seeing kids take stats and college math prep and take applications and be successful, so they're ready for those other classes. I think is a good thing. Then you have some of our state data, which I know we talked about back in November. It's just on the graphs, it's a little easier to see that way. And then finally, that youth apprenticeship work experience participation has really climbed up through the roof, which is awesome. Tom Martin, if we invited him over here, he'd keep you here for about 3 hours talking about it. He's the guy we're going with tomorrow that nominated representative for this stuff. He can't say enough. I can't say enough. The kids do a lot of good work with this. It's nice to see this grow because it's not just a kid going out to do auto mechanics or a kid going to the farm, or we have kids in finance. We have kids going down to the elementary because they want to be teachers in a couple of years. We have kids that are working at stores because they want to be business people. So it's really expanded. We do get some, for everyone that's completed, you get up to $1,000 reimbursed for money to happen, which is part of that freezer that we're doing here this year. So kind of neat.
Is that the completed and recognized by state?
Yep.
That's the $1,000.
Those are the $1,000. So now part of it is they're not all recognized by the state, right? Like education is not recognized by the state. If you don't get 450 hours, it's not recognized by the state. So then Tom actually goes through and confirms all of them. We have some kids that maybe they only got 400 hours or they just missed that. So we're trying to be a little bit more diligent when we look at that paperwork turned in and stuff, making sure that we can get those dates because they'll let you backdate to when they started and things like that. So summer hours count. For seniors, it counts all the way until they go to college, basically. So August 31st. So if they graduate, those hours can count all the way through. So the goal is to grow those numbers there, right? Where it's completed and recognized by the state.
Can you, on the ELA score and the math scores for the state report cards, I think the gap, right, is COVID that we're just not reporting or whatever.
Right.
It was a year there was no testing.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
So that would be a gap in that score too, but
The gap there is there was no state report card.
Okay. And then but there's this like incredible jump. And so.
Yep, it says that on the bottom. So the big thing there, the report card was out of 50 and they changed it to out of 100 starting in 2020.
We'll see. Okay.
And then there's a note on the bottom of that there.
Okay.
So math score changed from out of 50 to 100, same thing with the reading score. So that's why you see that giant jump there.
Are we doing worse then now? So like if the blue line was a 37, would that have been a
it's
74 and now we're about the same?
Pretty consistent, I would say. So even through the COVID, I think we've actually been pretty consistent with our scores.
Got it. Yeah, no, I see it now.
So
This might be easier to read if you,
I can double it and do that. What do you mean?
well, instead of a hard number score, if you give a percentage. So,
So our score out of 50.
It was points out of 50. Now
Oh, I
it's
see
points
what
out of
you're saying.
100. But you can kind of compare apples to apples.
Well, and I could just double those.
That would
So
also
it'd be the
work
same
in
thing.
the
But I can
national
do
and
that.
say adjusted.
I tried to leave them the way they were, but yes, I also did that. Yes, they're pretty consistent.
Well, if you convert it to a percentage, then you're not really making it look like it was out of 100.
Well, it'd be the same thing when.
Essentially. I mean, I don't think it's fraudulent. Yeah.
No, I know.
Half a dozen.
I think once this. Fair.
Yeah,
You get my
so
point.
I do, sure.
I don't think you do.
No, yeah.
In the redefining ready, some of those things, that's what some of the experts are saying. Is a student prepared for whatever comes next? It's not just, I got a 28 on my ACT score. It's, I was in attendance. I got at least a C or better in Algebra 2, and I took a math class my senior year, and I was involved in more than one co-curricular or extracurricular. I was involved in, and people have looked at what is it that helps kids be successful, whether it's a 4-year, 2-year, or right to the workforce. So tracking some of those things helps us determine, are we hitting those things?
Yeah, and I think this is a great evolution towards next step of, this is what the experts say in general. Now, what do we feel like makes up a successful graduate at Mineral Point? And it probably can be a lot of these things. We can attach it to the portrait of a graduate, and then we can publish these scores on our website and show that we're easily surpassing state averages in almost every marker. And then we want to see how we're improving. I think prospective families, students, want to see the great work we're doing. So this is a great next step. So
This client, I was done before an hour and a half.
Oh, you're not done.
Oh.
I got a question.
All right, never mind.
Saying, but and then you don't have to answer now, Matt, but maybe like next time. When you look through this data, now that you've got it all kind of collected and it's really useful, and thank you for doing it. I think this is what we're looking for. What bothers you when you look at this? What do you think you want to work on in the high school? So, and then you kind of communicate that to us. Then the next step is like, how you're going to do it, like what's your approach. So I don't think we need those answers tonight, because I'd like you to, take that in and think about it. And and then what, if any, resources do you need from the board exactly to make that happen? So reading's a problem at the elementary school, middle school, high school. We, purchase that curriculum for the elementary school. Maybe it's not necessarily money or a program, but time or other kinds of resources. And then, at the start of the school year for next year, we want to have this conversation again then. So okay, this is where we sort of wound up last year. This is where we think we'll be this year. And these are sort of our problem areas, and this is what I want to do about it. And if you don't hit your target, we're not going to be upset or angry or anything. We just well, Justin, he could be, but we'll leave that to us.
I just
I think, and then we'll just talk about it, but that's healthy communication and the dialogue we want to be having with you is just what do you, because we're not here every day. So what do you see as the issues? And we love the good news, and we love seeing the kids, and this is awesome to actually be in front of them and get to ask them questions. And I really appreciate that. But we want to, as you've learned, this is going to be a pretty analytical board, and wanting to see these scores and then using that information to make decisions.
Well, and I think obviously this wasn't all pretty on the graphs and stuff, but I think that's part of where it drives towards that. That's why Ms. Brunson and I are having those conversations, because I think it leans into that, because yes, this is what the experts say. Here's what we as a community say. Now, how do we make sure that we're hitting those? So I think that's where it really digs in.
Kind of tying to what you said, Will, I think just having having a line on each graph, what's the goal? And if you're meeting goal, cool, next, below goal, to the points we talked about, what's the problem we're working on, so.
Great presentation. Thanks for bringing some students. That was,
There's a lot going on. You don't want to hear from me about all
you
this.
must have a lot of polls getting these students. How many came to the meeting?
Maybe they're just not great. But it was good. Nice to see them. I said, a lot of good things over the last month that have happened, so it's just nice to highlight those. It was a quick month, but it was busy. I mean, honestly, it just DPI, and it was Nate, and it was this, and it was good. So good stuff though.
Yeah, thank you. Any brief elementary school update on behalf of Mr. Renwick?
Still standing.
Still standing?
Yeah.
Yes, we're not dripping water anymore.
We're not leaking water, no. There's been a lot of help. Angie Klein is going well above and beyond any expectation and trying to take on a lot of extra things down there. I've been down there a couple of days. I know I was ready to get some other people down there to help shoulder the load too as well, to just make sure there's at least an administrative presence in the afternoons and when Mr. Renwick leaves whenever he gets tired, you know, I'm working on building that strength back up. But you know, my hats off to Angie for everything that she's been doing down there too.
I know you've been down there more, so it's sure. Everyone's stepping up. Good. Okay. So we'll move to committee updates then?
Sure.
Okay.
And finance, policy, and operations meet. Want me to go first?
Sure, yeah. We'll have the minutes now that they're approved will be focused on the school website. So you can feel free to hit the high points, especially all the recommendations.
All right, so in terms of policy meeting, I know we got one action item that's gonna come up. It's actually our first action item after we give committee updates. The 3 main areas. Are we gonna review board policies, superintendent evaluation moving forward, and then onboarding new school board members. So in terms of how we're gonna review board policies, we all talked, or we all agreed that we gotta start somewhere. And WASB actually offers a service for $4,500. So they come in and assess all policies and say, okay, here's the ones that need to be updated. And for $4,500, we thought that was a good return on our investment in terms of time, because that would take all of us a lot of time to do that. So that's the action I think it's going to come up for approval. Superintendent evaluation, WASB also offers a service for $600 to help kind of craft one based on some standards and policies they have. But we thought it would be best at the end of our strategic planning stuff we're doing with Dr. Nutter to get his thoughts on it, kind of collaborate with him and then come up with something that works best for me. And then I know Aaron's and Mitch have been working on a procedure or policy for onboarding new school board members. I think that's probably 89% done. Anything you guys want to add on that one?
You did mention that there is a current board policy that basically states the exiting board member turns back in their board policy binder, and that's about it. So probably want to bring back to the policy committee a recommendation, at least kind of a schedule of events. If there's a new board member in place, these are the things we want to see happen within a month, within the first 2 months, or, whenever it can be scheduled in. But I think kind of based on that outline, trying to craft the policy that incorporates that.
I think also be helpful, once Rachel's been kind of in a couple meetings and maybe gone to the WASB, new board member orientation, and kind of reassess after that, so kind of the first couple of months go, what could we have done better? And then maybe we can kind of finalize a policy after that.
Any questions on any of that stuff? Before I jump into operations?
Just want to be clear, I didn't cause the need for new onboarders.
No.
This policy was drafted a year ago. So you,
Just checking. Well, we got to figure out how to wrangle her.
Yeah, no.
The policy review service for 4,500. Can you just go maybe one layer deeper on that for me?
Yeah, I mean, essentially the services, they review all of our policies and assess which ones have had updates. Mitch, pretty much over the last
Yeah.
couple of years, and
Do we have, there are certain policies they want to make sure that we have. Do we have those? Do we have the most recent version of those policies in our board book? If not, that would be something that we would bring back for a first and second reading to make it our newest policies. They have is it a quick reference or a quick guide or something of board policies that we can use? They'll have sample policies at WASB that we can, pull 2 or 3 samples down and review them and look at. So, yeah, so they'll look at our current policy book, which they have a copy of. And, we'll look through that. If they were going to do a real big dive and help us actually craft a policy that's specific to Mineral Point, then they would charge us on a per hour basis or at their attorney fees. That's not part of our membership for WASB. So we thought this was a good overview of the entire book, for them to kind of go through and, everything looks good. You might want to look at your 300s or your 400s a little bit, but here's a policy we know you have to upgrade, and at least it gives us a start. Because the other comment was, then should we maintain a spreadsheet that says, okay, we've looked through these policies. These are all good. We know the 100s are good, which are the board specific to board members. We need to make sure we look at the 300s, which is like student or instruction. And, when were those policies last reviewed? When are they updated? And that's something that we would look at more internally trying to do then once they have an opportunity to kind of look through and review.
So it's similar to like an informal audit or an internal audit, except we're having somebody else do it. Okay.
and then we can level set and then set a policy or process that we're reviewing.
We review the 100s and even years and the something.
Yeah.
Okay. I like it.
Can we still pay for the policy resource guide?
Yes. Yep, that's the quick reference. It's a policy resource guide is where we can go and look at. Oh, I don't like how ours is worded. I can go to WASB and pull out 2 or 3 examples, and then we've done this before too, where we pull 2 or 3 examples. This one seems to best fit us. Now let's edit that one and make it ours. And we know that it has the stamp of approval from WASB basically by doing that. The other company is Neola. I'm sorry, I don't remember what the letters stand for, but it's another national organization. That membership fee is drastically higher than WASB's, but they will send you, you need to remove pages 75 to 82 and put these in its place, adopt these and put this in its place. So they will do that for you the minute there's a new update. WASB does not do that. So this review kind of gives us at least a jump start on making sure all of our policies are where we need to be or what needs to be reviewed by a priority.
Yeah, this shouldn't be a recurring expense on an annual basis. Like Justin said, it's kind of a one-time audit to invest in. And I think the policy committee can do a better job of keeping things up to date as we go. As new policies come up, new issues come up, the staff are good about, introducing policies that they feel like need to be updated. I feel like there won't be a lot of recurring expenses. Plus, Mitch suggested that, we could probably get this before in the current budget without adding to our future budget issues, concerns.
And in terms of operations, we met as a group last week to sit on what I think were probably the 2 most important agenda items on there. First one being the before and after school care program. So Mitch came with you know, a one pager, I'll call it, of what Dodgeville is doing. They have a before school and after school, option. Kind of talk through the costs, and main takeaway was for Mitch to go back with a recommendation together that's budget neutral, hires outside staff, and addresses before and after school. Christy also talked with some community stakeholders to get their feedback. She met with them this past weekend and they put a survey together that's going to go out.
I got a copy of that today, so yeah, we'll work on getting that out.
So, I mean, last month we heard and we felt the community members who we got to do something. And so I think we're taking the next step here and looking at options and figure out what we can do. Yeah. Second item was the elementary south parking lot. So Mr. Schrank came in to give his insights and feedback and expertise. Just sum that up quickly and in terms of, that whole process in the parking lot, kind of keeping it running smoother, definitely keeping snow off that kind of right section when you pull in there, coming up Cawthorn. Get a sign, a yield sign, as you're pulling out. The advice was not to put a stop sign. Let's see what else.
Right turn only.
Yeah, right turn only. Thank you. And then
Shotgun dismissal.
we thought one of the big constraints or issues with the kind of pandemonium in the parking lot is the staggered dismissal. I think after spring break, we're going to try to implement that.
Yeah, we'll look at trying to make some changes and, have everybody that, in layman's term, the walkers and riders, would be dismissed at one time and they would all be heading out of building, predominantly out the building on one side to that lower lot. So then if you have a kindergartner, third grader and a fifth grader, there's a chance they're all coming out of the building pretty much close to the same time as opposed to 3:25, 3:27, 3:33, some of that staggered release.
Then to help with all these changes, Joelle's going to work on a communication plan and really push that out to the public so it's in front of everybody. Everybody's seeing it constantly and understands, this is how it's supposed to work and here's why we're doing it. And then lastly, there's a suggestion to have the player media create a public safety video. So we'll see what they come up with and maybe we'll take a video of some kids in their car. How it's supposed to go. I don't know. We'll see. That's about it.
Thank you again for letting me talk about that and my expertise. And I think there's going to be some really positive changes that come out of it. And the video idea, I was actually on my way home from meeting with Dr. Dunn and Justin, and I'm like, I'm one of those people, like, I got to see it to learn it. So if we can do a cool video, shows everybody how to do it, I think that would be great. So I think there's a lot of positive changes that'll come out of it. And then, if we need more feedback from the community or staff or administration, I think, we can make it work. So.
I think these two examples are, we want to hear feedback from the community. I mean, these are just two examples, like I said, of us coming together and talking through solutions and having people like you come in and, give your thoughts and why this is so important. So coming.
Absolutely. I've noticed that our board meetings, we aren't getting the same type of feedback that we were, say, 2 years ago, but what we're getting is really helping us find ways to meet needs in the community that these weren't the conversations we were having before. Yes, is what I'm trying to say. These are great.
It's childcare issue. I've just been reading about it everywhere now. So I get a In Business magazine, which is like for business community in Madison, and it was the front cover, childcare crisis, and it's statewide. And, the school district is now like one of the only anchor institutions in this community. And it's an additional thing for us, but, it's sort of a natural place also. If we can figure out how to be budget neutral and we got the space, and the gyms and all the stuff, you know, and it could tie into like physical education and nutrition and social emotional learning if we get smart about it. So yeah, I hope we can do something.
Dr. Dunn, medical clinic talking about any kind of figure at all?
Not aware of anything.
I had heard something on some level, but
That might be a question for Dr. Fox, like with Upland Hills, new construction plans for the subway building.
I reached out to somebody and hadn't heard back yet. I'd asked that same question, just there was some rumors or rumblings that this might be a possibility. Is there any truth to it? I haven't heard back.
Thanks, Justin. Yep. Finance Committee?
Yes, we met, 4 agenda items. We voted on the first one last meeting with the retirement. 2 of them are action items tonight, so we can refer to those. The 4th piece was, just an update on the insurance. We got it's reported out that our insurance will be coming back lower than estimated. If we make no changes, it'll be no higher than 4%. But we'll be getting options shortly for what it will be if we choose the HMO option, which like a very high percentage of our staff falls into naturally already.
I think it's about 98% of our claims are within a Dean HMO provider.
So we just discussed potential options for meeting a 0% increase, what that would look like. Just getting options for the insurance or the drug card, changing those amounts and seeing what that would. A year ago, had we gone to HMO and the increased drug card would have actually dropped 0.7% over the year before. So Liz will be putting that together and kind of presenting those options to us to let us figure out which levers we want or need to pull to get to where we want to be. But it was fantastic news to start with. And we can identify from there where we want to go.
She was saying that some districts are experiencing double-digit increases in their healthcare premiums for next year.
So just on the HMO point of sale or POS, that point of service, sorry. That the intention is not that we would force everyone into the HMO, but that in order to continue to take advantage of the point of service option, that they may pay an additional premium. And so I don't want anybody who's hearing this to think you're taking away something, but that we might ask for, might kind of cost that appropriately. But since 98% of our claims are already within that HMO network, it feels like that would be a small impact, but we don't want anybody to feel like they're trapped into that as their only option.
Thanks.
Just a general finance meeting question. Does Danielle come to those?
She did the last one.
Was she? Okay.
Danielle and
Amanda.
Are we discussing any kind of like waste cutting activities and
We're working on it.
processes?
Talk about it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's an action item for tonight, right?
Some of the things they're doing, we've already cut down on some of the expenses out of there, some of the paper expenses, some of the check writing expenses that both ladies have implemented already. And sorry if I stepped on anybody's toes, but I thought if you're saving the district money, I'm not waiting for you to go to a board meeting to get approval. Go ahead and save the district some money right now. But you know, they're looking for a lot of efficiencies and helping. They're been very positive. You know, it's difficult to lose Marcia, no doubt about it, but they've been very positive for us as well.
We go to the action agenda. First is approval of contracting with WASB to perform the review of our board policies as discussed by member Skelding during the policy committee presentation. That was approved on a 3-0 committee vote, right?
Yep.
So, do you want to have anything more to introduce, to explain it, or just, do we just?
I don't know what else to say other than
Yeah.
basically what we've said already.
Out of the current year's budget, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I move that we move forward with the contracting with WASB to perform the board policy review for an approximate cost of $4,500.
You want to second that?
I'll second it.
Kaiser Skelding. Yep. Any other questions, concerns?
We did this, in my work last year. It was, $3,000 or whatever for ours is much smaller, but it's worth its weight in gold. So like, and I've looked at our policy manual and there's like a lot of stuff, you see the date on there, you're like, that was a long, I've seen some like 88s and 89s in there, I think. So
Like a pager policy.
the pager policy, So it's really worthwhile to do this and have somebody who knows, what they're doing. This is their work, their job. And we created so many efficiencies when we did this and made my employees' lives a lot better, actually, with a lot of the stuff they suggested. So really worth it. I support it.
Great.
We can't get rid of the pager policy because if we have somebody that wants to be a part of the fire department, they wear a pager, therefore.
Any other comments, questions? Discussion, motion? Maybe.
Isner,
Yes.
Skelding,
Yes.
Bergstrom.
Yes.
Bush,
Yes,
Harris,
Yes.
Tony.
Yes. Next is the Finance Committee's recommendation to move accounts payable to weekly rather than monthly. I'm gonna give a brief.
yeah, so in order to create some efficiencies with accounts payable to get our, I think one of the main concerns is get our local vendors paid on time. I'm not incurring funds by waiting until the next board meeting because unfortunately everybody doesn't set their billing cycle to our board meetings and when we can approve to pay them. So sometimes we're paying two billings in a month. On one and early on the next. It's just to create a monthly or a weekly payable. And through the committee, we decided we should probably still put our eyes on it and check it out and just, give our thumbs up by not giving a thumbs down. And so we'll get a weekly report 24 hours in advance of the payables. If there's no objections or concerns, they'll just print the checks. I think we'll get it by Wednesday afternoon and they'll print Friday morning. And then we'll just approve all of the checks at one meeting for the formality of approving all the checks. Most of them will be sent and gone already. Anything that wasn't approved in the budget or is over the purchasing policy will still be brought to us on an individual basis. But the thought process was most of this stuff was budgeted for and already approved by us. A lot of it has already been done. And what are we going to do if we don't want to pay for it at that point anyway? Why are we waiting 3 more weeks to get approval to send a check? So it's just going to create some efficiencies in terms of, some of the issues we found last time were just from, it had been so long that someone turned a second PO in because they forgot they turned the first one in. It had been so long, we got a second and a third bill from the company. And we already had the first one loaded and didn't realize the first one was loaded and loaded another one. So it will eliminate those inefficiencies, which will make us very clean and looking at one sheet of 15 to 20 checks a week is going to be cleaner for all of us than trying to page through 90 to figure out which one we have a question. So 3-0, 2-0, 3-0,
3-0.
3-0.
Trio.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take a motion to approve this recommendation.
We'll move.
Second. Okay, Harris Skelding, did you get the Full motion, okay. Any other discussion, questions?
Question, do we usually pay vendors in 30 days?
Try to. The hard part is what we've really been finding out lately is that, okay, in a normal cycle, we meet tonight, all of a sudden we'll get 2 or 3 bills tomorrow. And it's fast, or we'll get a bill on Friday and it's too late to include it in this month's board packet. So it sits until the next board meeting. Sometimes we get a little interest, or, you pass 30 days, a lot of times a bill and the payment passed in the mail, here's your second notice, but the bill now is gone because of the board meeting. So we try to do as much local as we can. And like Andy said, if we can make sure our locals are being paid in a timely fashion, they're not wondering, are we going to stiff them, or I don't really want to add, something because it's a late fee, or, I'm going to add 2% or anything. So both ladies thought that this would be a big improvement and would certainly help in their office, and then would help all of our local vendors too a little bit more.
I'm not saying we should do this, but if we push to like net 60 days, could we float enough cash where we didn't have to borrow like that every time in the year we have to get like that line of credit?
I think 60 would be hard. Again, because it all depends on when do you get your state aid payment, when do you get your tax payment, then for a school district, you're flush with money for a little while, and then you start to pay out, and then all of a sudden you hit that time where it's like, okay, my next aid payment's coming next month. So sometimes we don't have a choice, but they have to touch that line of credit through farmers.
Yeah, I don't want to like impact local businesses that already have tight cash flow, but we're just curious.
Other comments, questions?
Chris,
Yes.
Bisner,
Yes.
Joking,
Yes.
Bergstrom.
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes. Next is approving the posting and hiring of 2 special education interns for each semester of the upcoming school year. Would you getting up?
Sure. The cost of an intern is $5,000 for a semester. So it would be a $20,000 cost in total for the year if we could get 2 special ed interns each semester. And the big need really is for someone licensed who can provide instruction.
So at the finance committee meeting, I kind of tried to give a summary of where our enrollment is and an average of how many students are coming in and everything, and what projected caseloads for next year. And our numbers are getting pretty high with a lot of direct service minutes. And another assistant or special education assistant, as much as we love them and they do an amazing job, they can't provide direct services. And so it just isn't really feasible. We have pretty high numbers in both the elementary and in the middle school. So maybe the best way would be to search out an intern. And then the finance committee actually brought up the idea that maybe the numbers show us that we need 2 interns. I reached out UW Platteville does not, even though that's where we get our PE interns from, they do not have a special education major at UW Platteville. So I reached out to Whitewater, which is kind of the nearest school, UW system school to us, that has a program. They have a very well-established program, very well-known program. But since have learned that when WISP, whatever we put, there's an online portal that you would post an application, we can actually indicate that we would take an intern from any state school with a recognized program. So it may very well be limited to Whitewater, but it may be somebody from Oshkosh or La Crosse or Eau Claire who also have programs in special education.
Yeah, at the finance committee, the numbers are actually, and that may be something just to share out to the whole board.
Yeah,
just so we have it. The numbers are actually pretty staggering.
so, yeah, so I just ran, I always start running potential caseloads. Our EC and 4K person who is a half-time teacher, because she also teaches 4K, regular 4K in the afternoon, right now would potentially have 9 students that are age 3 and 4 in early childhood, plus 3 students at the 4K level. So for one person who works half-time, that is 12 students, which is really high when you're talking about 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. Tentatively, one of our elementary teachers would support K1 and 2. She would have 7 students. One person would support grade 3, just because that's the grade that we've been talking about all year. There are 7 students with extremely high needs in that class. And then 4th and 5th grade would have 12 students. And our middle school, 6th through 8, is projected to have 30 students next year, which is the highest percentage of students we've ever had at the middle school that we would be supporting for special education. So initially I came hoping to be able to offset some of those elementary numbers. And then I believe it was Andy who asked about middle school support. We currently have 2 teachers at the middle school, so 30 students across 3 grades is a big challenge for them.
There is, we currently have our flow through. We have a couple of teachers that 100%, so we aren't able to reimburse for Medicaid and stuff on a few of them. So this would allow us to move them to 90 or 80 and move the $5,000 into the flow through and receive some funding back on that. So we could actually receive not directly funding back on the spend, but we would pick up funding on allocating it to a different account number.
Jamie Nutter, if you guys ever want, does a great job of explaining this, but funding sources in special education, we have that flow through grant, which is a 340 code. And then we have Fund 27, which is the special ed money. And there's 2 different codes in there. 011 is reimbursable. Those are things like our staff salaries, largely our staff salaries, but there's allowable costs that we usually do our staff salaries. And then there's 011, which is not reimbursable. So if we buy equipment or things like that. Our 340 code numbers that flow through, we can use however we designate. Right now, we do portions of special ed assistance. That's where our supply budget comes from, our audiologists, some of our OT and PT costs like those. And we use that to try and not have as much expenses, but obviously we do because you guys transfer a lot. When we have staff who are paid just out of flow through at 100%, then we can't use Medicaid reimbursement for them because it's double dipping from the federal government. We try not to do that. But we've hired 2 staff, part-time staff, who are 100% paid out of this 340 grant, the flow through grant. If we shift them over to the Fund 27011, that allowable expense, we'll get reimbursement on them. And then we could put the intern in that grant fund because we can't get reimbursement on an intern anyway. So even though it wouldn't bring us back all of the $20,000, it would bring us hopefully $9,000 because they're talking about a 45% reimbursement on special ed for next year. So it's a portion that we get back and then we, be able to utilize them. So just trying to think of like how we can maximize reimbursements and still use our grant to the maximum extent we can. So that was one of the ways that we thought presenting. Obviously, by shifting any money, we're still going to have a special ed transfer, Fund 27 to Fund 10 transfer at the end of the year. There's just no way around that until the state really does reimburse 67%. But just trying to figure out how we can maximize some reimbursement back for us.
That flow through is a federal grant. We get money. Sometimes there can be a carryover. So if we don't spend it all in this year, we can carry over a portion of that into the following year.
I know oftentimes when we come, I always say this year is cost neutral because we do try to carry over a percentage so that if we have a student move in or we have needs that we have to meet, that's how we do it for that first year.
Typical percentage.
What do we normally carry? So like this year we were allocated 171,000 and I budgeted about 155,000. So I usually try, previous years we've gotten 195,000 and the budget's been about 175. So we try to carry over about 20,000 because that's typically around the cost of an assistant. So 20 to 30,000, and then sometimes the carryover cost is higher. You know, just because audiology services aren't as much as they needed to be. Your supplies didn't come in as much as we thought. So I think this year we had a really large carryover. I'm not sure. This year we had like $100,000 of carryover. I don't know what Marcia and I missed in communication when we budgeted it. But it's been helpful because we've had a number of students' needs come up this year that were much higher costs that we've had to enter into some specialized contracts and whatnot. So, but yeah, I don't know what percent that is, but it's usually between 20 and 30,000 that I try to carry over.
So essentially, this is a new $20,000 expense next year's budget minus 30 to 45% reimbursement. Correct me if I'm wrong. Based on special ed reimbursement. So we're looking at probably $11,000 to $14,000 added expense to next year's budget for 2 full years of special ed interns to help, provide direct instruction.
1 year.
Yeah.
Sorry,
2 semesters.
Two
Two per semester.
okay, it's not, but yeah, it's 4 total semesters of teaching, right? So
Yes.
2 interns
Yeah, 2 people
each for a
per
full
year.
year. 2 interns each for a full year, correct? No.
2 interns each for a semester. So you'll have 2 interns the first semester and then 2 new interns second semester. So you'll have 2 interns per semester.
But 4 semesters worth of instruction.
Okay.
I think we're back to that half dozen.
So they're licensed.
So they are basically a student teacher. So somebody who is in, and that's one of the benefits, like we could toss out, do we just hire a long-term sub? We talked about, do we just hire a new staff? Out of the staff that I've hired, going back since I've been doing this, most of our special ed staff are emergency licensed. So getting a student teacher who's been in a program is actually somebody who's probably more qualified than maybe the applicant I would be able to hire. So they're in their last semester and they do an internship in place of student teaching. So when they finish our internship, they will be fully licensed by DPI. They would be able to find a full-time job after that. So it's that last semester of placement.
While they're here.
They can do direct instruction. So the interns are 50% direct instruction and 50% of their day is supervised instruction. So they can do direct instruction for 50% of the day, and then they can help out in the special education classroom under supervising teachers for the remaining part of the day to still decrease those numbers.
So the licensure they receive is the
Yes. Yeah. And then I think I talked about this at the finance committee meeting. I don't know all of the district numbers around us, but I know like Platteville has 1 teacher per grade level. Lancaster has 1 teacher per grade level at an elementary level. Dodgeville, you thought 1 was every 2 grades. So trying to look at the kind of, I know Joni, you've asked too before about like comparable. Are we keeping up with the comparable numbers? I would say our elementary numbers are a little bit down, which is what led us to bring to this as well.
So one of the comments that was I think that came up during the committee meeting was the perfect solution, just like having the PE interns, would be to hire full-time teachers for this. Knowing what our budget situation is next year, this seems like a much more manageable approach to getting the supports that we need. It'd be great if we could say, actually, we're just going to hire 2 full-time special education teachers, 1 for each building.
That's a much higher cost.
But that's if we feel like this is a hard expense to swallow, imagine that one instead, and suddenly it's like, okay.
And I guess too, Danielle and Morgan are both here And I know that we're always talking about just staff well-being and is, you know, are they taking on more, but just your guys' opinion on like supervising an intern versus trying to manage your caseload alone. What are your guys' thoughts?
I just, to be honest, I need someone who can give the pull out minutes. Ever since COVID, we give more pull out minutes. We really want kids to be in the classroom with all peers. But with so much time at home, we pull out and they just need a little bit more support from us, which is becoming more difficult on our end because then we still have the behaviors, you know, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I need more support so that I can help them all. I can.
From my standpoint, like Angie said, I'm only part-time special ed and my numbers will be the highest that they've been. I think I've only had one other year that they've been this high. And I'll have 4K students. So how to support them when I'm a 4K teacher is where I'm kind of struggling the most because I'll have a full morning and then still need to support 4K students. So yeah, this extra sets of hands and those who can do the minutes and help with the meetings and help with the paperwork, a big difference.
How many times do you think your schedules have changed this year alone?
Sally. To be honest, I mean, I go to the assistant and I'm like, I'm really sorry, I changed your schedule once again. Like we're all in the same boat, we're changing constantly. But yeah,
And when the district gets a new student and if they have needs, you can almost hear the circus music playing because they're juggling. Well, if I can steal you from here to cover this group, then I can go provide support for this student who has the IEP that's written this way. So they're doing an unbelievable job down at the elementary school, and being able to provide even just this partial support would be a step in the right direction.
I think Danielle said it really well. It's they need supportive people who can provide direct minutes. Like it doesn't do any good to bring another body that they still have to plan and teach you how to teach it and then supervise you teaching it. And then it's just this vicious circle of I'm just managing more bodies and I'm not feeling any of the relief. So I think this is, to me, a great option while our numbers are higher and while we have students that have some really high needs right now that need to be met. And they're not all COVID related needs. Like, let's clarify that too. Like we just have had several students move in that have a really high number of needs. And then obviously there are also students who through COVID just need that extra time to put back into some academic support. So it's a combination of lots of things.
For finance committee, vote 3-0.
Yeah.
Want a motion?
Sure.
I'll make a motion to approve the hiring of 2 special education interns for 23-24 school year.
Second.
Is that for each semester?
Each semester. Yeah.
There's seconded. I just want to say I was at the committee meeting, and the spirit of the meeting that I got from it was, if we're going to prioritize any resources in our budget, it's going to be for the kids that are struggling the most to keep up and just meet basic reading and math standards. And I felt like if we were going to, devote any more money to any part of our school district, it was going to be, our kids with the highest needs. And so I felt that was a really compelling argument.
The ask was for one intern
one.
each semester. And through the conversation, it was, well,
And we
2 would
always
certainly
get one intern.
I'm optimistic we're going to get both, but you're right. We don't know what we're going to get, but we're going to try our best to get both.
And I just want to, in case anyone's paying attention, and if anyone has the ear of our representatives forming the budget, the more support we get for special ed reimbursement, the less something like this would hit the local taxpayer. Anyone else have comments or questions?
I'm excited to hear what you said. It will need them. It's actually something else we can do to get maybe the answer is like the budget out in favor of school district and decide what's in it all hands on deck right now, or as soon as possible next year. Great.
Anybody else? Hey, Angie?
Building.
Yes.
Bergstrom. Bush.
Yes.
Eric.
Yes.
Eisner.
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes. Okay, next is approval to maintain the social emotional position for the coming school year. That is Ross.
Correct. School social worker in this building. Yes, every year, when the position was approved, it was approved with a motion that every year you would reevaluate and approve this position separate from all other teacher contracts. So we're at that time of year where this needs to come forward. I would recommend, based on your board retreat, based on the success that we're finding with our students, based on the support that our kids are getting, that you might want to consider approving this and maintaining this position to the best of our ability moving forward, and therefore not having to renew it separately each year.
Yeah, can we, I don't know what the governance policies on this are, but can we just rescind the previous motion, or how do you go about that? So we just approve it with the other contracts?
I think you could probably just make that motion moving forward. You know, it's just saying from this point forward, it'll be renewed with all other teacher contracts.
The reason why the stipulation was put on that motion was because it was funded with a grant. Which means at the time we didn't have any money in the budget to pay for it, and we didn't want to create a recurring expense that we couldn't afford moving forward. That was the reasoning for that stipulation.
And to evaluate it separately.
And to
Since
evaluate,
it was a new
it was a new
position.
position, so, you know, do we still need it? You know, is it successful, et cetera? So my question for you is during our last board retreat meeting, there was a suggestion that there were new grant applications pending. So is this the final year that the position is being paid for by the grant? Okay, so your intention, barring any grant applications, would be to pay this out of Fund 10?
Correct. When I'm working on putting a budget together and where are we with salaries and benefits, I'm pulling everybody under the same umbrella. I'm not anticipating any grant money. If grant monies do come in, then obviously that frees up money in Fund 10 or Fund 27 in one of those areas. But right now I'm trying to prepare the budget with everybody being paid through district monies, not grant monies.
This position essentially serve as the guidance counselor at the middle school, or
No,
No.
Eric, the guidance counselor at the middle school, high school. There's a guidance counselor for middle school and high school. And
it's one
then
person?
it's one person
It's
for
Erica.
both. Yeah, it's Erica. And obviously her and Danny work really closely together. And then the way we just have kind of split it out is Danny's predominantly in this building, 612, and then our school psychologist is at the elementary school. Just so that they're both not running back and forth because their duties do overlap. But there's a guidance counselor in each building, plus another people service staff member. And this may be a good time too, Mitch, just to remind the board that there is I don't even know what program it is, but there is a special part of DPI, it's in there, that for specific for school social workers, that any cost we incur from growth from one year to the next, we can apply to be reimbursed for that change in percentage of increase. So like the first year of the grant, last year in the grant, it was 82% of Danny's salary or something was covered by the grant. This year it's 65% of her salary. So whatever that difference is that Mitch is paying out of Fund 10, we will be able to apply or put in. And then next year, if we aren't able to get a grant, again, and that's probably retroactive, it's paid a year out because it's the difference from year 2 to year 1 or year 3 to year 2. But every year you can apply whatever the change in what you spent on a school social worker is to get a portion of reimbursement. So.
And they have to be a licensed school social
and it's
worker, which
only
Danny
school-
is,
and
so.
it's only school.
By moving this position off of the current grant funding and just to be part of our normal budget, does that limit or reduce our ability to apply for future grant fundings that would go towards this position?
So we are looking at that now. There's several grants that we're looking at now. There is something in one of them about if it is a current employee, but we're not sure what that reads because she's only an employee because of the grant. So we think we would be able to get around that, but it can't, typically grants can't carry out something that already exists. Is redefining or bringing something new, but again, because she's, I mean, do you
Yeah, it's like can't supplant. It can't, if we've been paying for this all along, you can't write a grant to now pay for it. If we could afford a half-time and the grant could make it full-time, that's different than, it's not replacing district money that's being spent on something.
So is there a drawback then to removing the clause about reviewing this position every year? If not that we don't intend to keep it, but that by leaving it as an annual renewal, we're saying this is not a permanent position and potentially a grant money could be used to ensure the position exists for another year.
While these guys wrote some wonderful grants, and maybe our DPI expert can help us out a little bit here too, there's no guarantee that we can land the grant again, and more schools will be applying for this particular grant as well.
I think too about like, like if I knew my job was up every single year, not that I'm not performing my job to the best, but just the assurance that it would give her the peace of mind, right? Like we're committed to you being here. And that's a big commitment, I think, in a job with pupil services where you see lots of districts cutting school psych or school social worker or school counselors. And I think just having that commitment from you guys saying like, we don't need to review you any more than we review every other teacher in this district because we're committed to it. And I think from the discussion, and I'm sorry, I wasn't at the last board retreat. I teach on Thursday nights, but from the discussion that they told me, you guys are really committed to the work that they do. And I think one of the ways you can do that is to say, we're not reviewing your contract every year. We're reviewing you just like everyone else. But I don't know that it would make a difference. I'm not sure.
When's the grant application?
May 20 something. So there's one due at the end of April that has to do with McKinney-Vento, homeless compliance or homeless processes. There's an AODA one that we're writing, hopefully that will incorporate some sources of strength stuff. The school-based mental health one is open and the ESG 3I is also reopened. So there's a couple that we're looking at in different capacities, and they're all end of April to mid-May, and then we will typically find out in August if we receive the grant. The last round, I think we had an interview process as part of the grants and June or something like that.
I'm just curious to, the point that Tony makes about like, can we have both? It's like, can we wait until then and then pass a motion? Might not be worth it.
I mean, you certainly could. You could certainly approve it for next year. And if it qualifies for the grant and we can get some money, then we know that's the case moving forward. And then
well, and at least, depending upon how you guys vote here, I can at least say, for sure, like they've passed it, and I can absolutely fill Danny in on your conversation too about, should we rescind it? Should we keep it the way it is just because of grants and those types of things, so she knows the discussion.
I'm sure I felt the conclusive answer on that.
I don't know if I know a conclusive answer.
Well, I mean, are we, by approving this position to be paid out of Fund 10 salaries tonight, does that eliminate the possibility of funding this?
We're not
Position.
approving that.
Yes.
We're approving the position.
Okay,
We're not saying
right.
if we get the
So
grant, we can pay for it.
I think the key is that we don't necessarily, so the hesitancy is whether we approve it indefinitely, like on an auto renewal basis.
I understand that, but as soon as it goes to Fund 10, it's not new monies anymore. So whether we do it, I'm assuming if we can pay for it with a grant, that's where Mitch is going to direct the money. So whether
So it's a moot point.
It really
in
is.
your mind. Okay. That's helpful.
if we know the grant becomes available, it's not new money until or a Fund 10 position until we have to use Fund 10 the first time.
And we would,
And then we couldn't use the grant for it again. So as long as we keep getting the grant, Mitch will just direct the grant funds to the position.
That's how they determine this. Not about like the conversation about policy.
so has it been paid for out of Fund 10 before? And it has not.
Has not. Okay.
Or currently it's at 35% of it
Right,
has.
It's not funded 100% that way.
Before I ask for a motion, I also just want to say, just for transparency's sake, that I know that part of the reason the original board approved this position on a year-to-year basis was not only because it was funded by a grant, but also because it was a new position. They wanted to see if it was successful, effective, et cetera. I know this board has had a lot of experiences interacting with Danny, and we've had some, shared meetings. But if anyone feels like you want to hear like a job review or performance review from Angie or something, we would need to go in a closed session to do that. So we would need to table this before it and go in a closed session and then vote on it. If anyone feels desire to do that, I don't feel that desire because I feel like I've had enough experience that I know how I'm going to support the position. But I just wanted to clarify that's an opportunity if people have more questions about whether this is a position that we want to commit to, especially if they're thinking of committing to it long-term with motion.
How many years has this been in place now? Like when was the first year?
It's your second year or
This
third
is your
year?
second year, so it was a 2-year grant for that, so last year was the first year of the grant.
We've talked repeatedly in our planning sessions about social and emotional well-being being one of our top priorities, and we see the good things that they're doing as a team, like collectively as a group. We also have heard many times that the research tells us that students have to feel safe and included before they can reach their optimal learning potential. So while budgets are hard, in my mind, it makes sense to continue to support this initiative. So with that in mind, I will make a motion to extend this position for a year, with the intent that we will revisit this at the time we're renewing all contracts to see if at that point we understand the funding well enough to say we're going to include it as part of the recurring revenue stream. In my mind, and that's the end of the motion. I'll stop talking and then I can justify it if somebody's willing to second it.
I'll second the motion.
I'll second it.
As you're skilling.
In my mind, that allows us to see if the grant that we're expecting or that we're hoping for that's due in May will cover the position. I like the idea of keeping it on a grant for as long as possible. And then when the time comes, we'll absorb it into Fund 10.
Your current estimations of a deficit with CPI and health insurance, as we've previously discussed for next year, does that include this position in Fund 10? It does.
Every staff member. every current staff member rolled into next year. So no retirements, no grant monies, no nothing. It's every current staff member.
Got worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario.
Tony, are you suggesting that when we find out about this grant, like in August, and we're signing the contracts, what would change at that point then for you?
So for me, once this hits Fund 10, in my mind, we have to renew it yearly as long as, and maybe I'm not understanding correctly, we have to renew it yearly as long as it's grant funded. Once it hits Fund 10, there's no more opportunity to call it to receive grant money for that position because it's an existing position. And at that point, we put it on the books as a permanent position.
You'd want to keep doing this
As long as we can
on an
have it,
annual basis.
as long as we can keep it funding by grant. Recognizing it might not be the best employee experience. I mean, I do account for the fact that that might not be a great employee experience, but if there's anything in the grant that says this is an existing position that you are just recurring fund, which our intention is to keep it funding through grants.
Well, I'm not sure that that's exactly what I understood. So Angie,
Okay.
Just to clarify, if we were to make it a non-permanent position, like right now, sorry, a permanent position right now, so to say, we're gonna just becomes a permanent position here and we don't do this annual thing. Would that preclude us from getting a grant?
So that's the part I'm not 100% sure, because I see both Joni and Andy's point. I think Joni is saying if we say in open session on camera that we're reviewing it annually, there's always that idea that this isn't permanent, right? Because we're going to review it annually to see if we need it. I think Andy's got a point in that it doesn't become permanent until we actually use Fund 10 funds to pay for it. That's the supplant part. So I see logic with both of them. I honestly don't know I don't know which one is right. I don't know. Mitch, do you have a?
Can we get a legal opinion on this, Mitch?
Is anyone's position?
Yeah, that's
Without a review?
That's a question.
But Joni's is just, we'll review it at the same time we review all other contracts.
No, I think once it becomes a kind of a permanent staff member, then you have to go through a non-renewal process.
I think even
to
if
not
you
renew them.
I think even if you decided that how we'd have to do it
More than likely, we would have to do that.
now.
I think the question is, can we potentially write a successful grant that gets funded based on the fact that this is not a permanent position within our district? I think that's the major sticking point right now, to which we don't have that answer. We don't know if we will be successful in writing the grant or not. My thought is, if this position is important, and I'm saying I think it is, do we remove that separate yearly review like we're doing tonight and make it, this is a position that if Ms. Robb were to leave us, we know we're going to try to hire this position again, or that's the time we look at it and say, okay, through attrition, we're not going to fill that position, but in the meantime, it's not pulled out separately for review. We don't review a middle school math teacher separate than all the other teachers. So if it gives us an opportunity to be better successful, more successful in writing a grant, then maybe we hold off on rolling it into this permanent position until we know what the grant.
I think regardless of how the motion is, it comes down to how we write the description in the grant, right? Like it comes down to the application on the grant and how we describe whether it's existing position or a full-time existing position or not.
And if it's based on this current school year, it is not a full-time existing position.
Your motion is for the next school year,
That is how, that's how I stated it, but if if somebody wants to make an amendment to change it, I'm open to it. I don't know what the right path forward
I don't
is.
think we're out anything right now by. As long as the employee knows our intent and why,
Yes.
and that her employment is not,
In jeopardy.
sitting on the grant. That it's not as long as the motion was made that way to make sure we can get an answer to our question.
'Cause I think you
And
could
it
come
gives
back in
me some-
September or October and make the motion
Yeah,
too.
once we get an answer, we can.
Once we know whether or not a grant was successful, if there's no eligibility, we could come back at the beginning of the next school year and say, at that point in time, you could entertain a motion to make this position renewed or reviewed when all other teacher contracts are not separate.
I like the motion for that reason. We'll keep the whole door open until we get some answers and determine the grant, and then if we don't get the grant, then it goes to Fund 10. We can have a permanent position.
What I wrote down was to extend position 1 year with intent to.
Works.
You put a calendar reminder, something for August, please. And then
To review that?
Review this and.
Also gives time for the board goals to be solidified and
Yeah.
then put the stake in the ground. Like, they're not important and fine.
And Angie, can you make sure, communicate this to?
Yeah, I will talk to Danny
Ms. Rob.
tomorrow.
Yeah, I certainly don't want this conversation to cause her undue anxiety. It's about wanting to maximize our opportunity for any grant funding. Not minimizing our commitment to.
Free money is good money.
Free money is good money.
To get you as much free money as we can.
Right. We don't want to fire our hands now.
Right, right.
No,
Right.
no.
So,
Thanks. Yeah, I don't think it is. I'm just thinking of the stress myself to know that you're on the agenda item in March every year, you know? Yeah.
any other comments before we vote? Okay, Angie, call the question.
Eisner,
Yes.
Belding,
Yes.
Bergstrom. Yes. Bush.
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes. You're not?
I don't know. I don't know what's coming
Just
next.
go to calendar. We on the calendar
Nope,
committee?
not on the calendar committee.
Okay, next is approval of the district calendar for next year.
The district did not write a waiver. With the pandemic coming to an end, I know there are a couple of districts that snuck one in under the wire and had it approved, but supposedly at the federal level, the pandemic will be over in May. So we're back to the wonderful state law of not starting before September 1st. This upcoming school year, September 1st is affectionately termed Fair Friday. So when we met as a calendar committee, we looked at starting on Tuesday after Labor Day weekend with students. This calendar meets all of the requirements for days days per employee handbook. There is no day requirement by the state. Hour requirement, it meets all of the hours. It does have time built in. Obviously not 10 snow days like we seem to experience this year, but it still has some snow days time built into it. The one question that came out from some of the staff, because there are representatives from both buildings and administration, sports staff. There's a day in April, Friday, April 26th is a work day. We could have been in school that day and would have ended the school year on Monday, June 3rd, while coming back to school in the month of June isn't a fan favorite by student or staff alike. Putting in that day that will be most likely prom in 24 will be on that weekend. So it gives junior class a little more flexibility when it comes to decorating the gym for prom. It also breaks up kind of that 2-month straight run of school days. And might just be what students need is an extra day, a day there. And quite honestly, without the use of virtual days, it could potentially be a fallback snow day makeup day if push comes to shove. But this calendar was thrown out in front of all staff members. No feedback other than, wish we could start earlier.
We had 5 snow days this year, correct?
God, I can't remember off the top of my head. I can remember that sheet.
That number sticks in my head for some reason. 5 snow days, and then we had 1, 2 virtual days. 1, 2 weather.
At least 2.
It's been at least 2, if not 3. Mr. Austin, how many virtual days do we have? 3?
The weather.
The weather.
Right. 2.
One with
The third one was just the high school? Okay, so, okay,
2 because of the weather.
yeah.
2 because of the weather. Okay.
So that would actually be 6 snow days. We have 4 built into our calendar. We have enough time. We have 4 snow days, weather days built into our calendar. We had a 2-hour late start prior to the winter break. And then we had a 2-hour late start here just this last week.
Do those count?
You deduct those out. Yeah, you deduct those hours. We actually have 3 hours left to play with.
And a late start is it 3 hours? 2. It's 2 hours.
Instead of starting at 8, we start at 10. But this calendar basically builds in 4 snow days. It could absorb 4 snow days and a couple of late starts and or early releases due to weather.
So are we past the point where we could submit it an exception? Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
I'll make the motion to approve the calendar as presented by this.
Thank you. Snow day, December 9th and the 22nd. Which the staff sent me an extra nice Christmas present because that was the last day before Christmas, right? So we didn't have it because of bad weather. A late start, January 3rd, snow day on February 9th. And then February 16th and the 22nd were virtual learning days. Those were days off. And then March 10th was a 2-hour late start due to weather.
Second.
Yeah. Any other comments, questions about the calendar? Feedback from anybody on it? It's nice that we start after the fair. That helps.
There are a handful of schools that are bringing their kids in on September 1st. I think after the positive feedback this last year of having that Friday off, we will try to maintain that Friday off to the best of our ability.
As a mom whose kids take livestock to the fair, I would love it if we could take off the Tuesday too, because when I get them home that Monday, they are spent, but I recognize that might be asking a little too much. Just rules, routines.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Let's vote on the calendar.
Bush,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Belding.
Yeah.
Bergstrom.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, next is business services, credit card statement of activity and bills payable. take a motion to approve them together or separately.
Make a motion to approve them all together.
I'll second.
Any discussion, comments, questions?
What do the credit card reward points translate into dollars?
I'd have to ask Danielle. I'm pretty sure it's not dollar per dollar, dollar per point, but I will ask Danielle what the actual reimbursement is.
Any other questions, concerns?
Bush,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Helding, Bergstrom.
Yes.
Yes. The next will go to employee services. First is putting a hire of a new night custodian.
Michelle Hughes is the custodian. We still have a posting out there. We're still one custodian short at night. So I don't know if my update made sense. I had Melissa Calloway working at the elementary school 8 hours every night. Position that was 4 hours there and 4 hours in this building, basically taking care of the middle school. Opened up due to resignation that you'll be approving next. And she expressed interest in that. So the position we've hired is to replace Melissa's full-time 8-hour position at the elementary school. And then Melissa will do the float position. We have a full-time position at night in this building yet still. We're looking to hire. So I would recommend Michelle, $15 an hour. It's the base rate for nighttime custodian.
Did you say she's already done some work for the district?
She was doing some subbing, some training, just something I want. We did this with another potential employee that worked out great because they decided it wasn't something that they were wanting long-term. So we brought somebody into sub for us one night and gave us 8 hours, and we thanked them for their time, but they didn't want to pursue it any further. So yes, Michelle has been doing some subbing and training in our buildings.
So we have the option of tabling this until after closed session, or we can approve the motion right now.
This is the hire. I'll make a motion.
Approve the hire?
Yeah.
Okay. Any second?
I'll second.
Comments, questions?
The 15 per hour. We have risk of losing her at that rate. Like a lot of turnover.
She came to us from a position that was making more per hour, but had no insurance type benefits, and said that that's what was probably the most attractive thing, is that she qualifies for health insurance benefits with this job. So yeah, she was satisfied with the dollar amount.
I think that's our biggest struggle.
We'd have to make a board motion to raise the starting wage for support staff, right? Change that? Or is that something that you negotiate?
I have negotiated that in the past, just like if I get a teacher that's got 15 years of experience, I won't necessarily give them 15 years of experience on our salary schedule, but I will try to give them experience. I've had people come that started at $16 an hour. Here's kind of the base pay is $15 an hour, and they might come and negotiate, and we can try to settle on something that so far everything has been a cost savings. When you're talking support staff, though, you might be talking 15 cents an hour or $1 an hour difference. So that's not the same as a veteran teacher and a brand new teacher. That's not that same savings, but we've done whatever we can to get people in that are willing to work with us and for us.
Anything else? Angie?
Harris,
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Belding.
Yes.
Bergstrom, Bush,
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes. Okay, next is approval of resignation and, posting to replace.
Yeah. Would be, we have a nighttime custodian, he was days injured, came back working nights. Did not work, for him. Troy Rab has basically then informed me that he was needing to resign the position. So I recommend you accept the resignation.
I'll move to accept the resignation.
A second.
Any other comments?
Harris,
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Belding,
Yes.
Bergstrom, Bush,
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes. Okay, we have a closed session to basically discuss potential succession planning for potential retirements. So I'll take a motion to go into closed session to have that discussion.
So moved.
One second.
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Belding. Bergstrom, yes. Bush,
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone online. Those of you that are still here.
I mean, they're over.